A World Cup qualifier led to an actual war? A football game? Or if you're a glizzy goblin, freedom-loving American, a soccer game. Without a single drop of oil involved, caused a war? So what do football, the FIFA World Cup, and American banana companies have to do with a war between two Central American countries? Well, you see, here we have El Salvador in the 1960s. Tiny country, lots of people, most of them are farmers, but they had one small problem. There wasn't enough land for them to farm. So Salvadorans started moving illegally across the border into their much larger neighboring country called Honduras, which had far more land and far fewer people. Big mistake. Why? Well, Honduras was the OG banana republic. See, for most of the century, American fruit companies like United and Standard Fruit maximized profits by monopolizing cheap Central American land and exploiting underpaid local labor to harvest bananas. They had spent decades turning Honduras into one giant banana vending machine. Land, railroads, ports, politics, a Honduran guy with suspiciously strong calves? If it helped move bananas, they wanted control of it. So when Honduras' new military dictator, Oswaldo López Aureliano, came to power, he had a problem. American companies were doing great. Ordinary Hondurans? Not so great. Land was concentrated, jobs were scarce, wages were low, and people were furious. So he did what any brave visionary leader would do. The Salvadorans are to blame! Sir, they're dirt poor farmers. Perfect! No lawyers! Soon, Salvadorans were being harassed, attacked, and pushed back across the border, which was a huge problem for El Salvador's elites, because Honduras had been accidentally solving their land crisis for them. This is an outrage, a moral disaster, a crime against humanity. We condemn this in the strongest possible terms and beg of you to reverse it immediately. Please. No. So by 1969, tensions between the countries were at a boiling point. But at the same time, they were drawn to face each other in a playoff series to qualify for the upcoming 1970 FIFA World Cup. The first match was in Honduras, but the night before the game, Honduran fans gave the Salvadoran team a traditional warm welcome. Good night, lads. Sleep tight. So by morning, the Salvadoran players walked onto the pitch, exhausted, and then they lost 1-0. But back in El Salvador, this wasn't treated like a normal football loss. It became a national humiliation. El Salvador won 3-0 on home turf. But after the final whistle, Honduran fans were attacked, and the players had to escape in a bulletproof bus. So now both countries had grievances. El Salvador was furious about the first game, Honduras was furious about the second. And FIFA, seeing two countries actively trying to kill each other, made the obvious decision. Let's play a third! Let's play a third one! El Salvador ended up winning the decider 3-2, which meant Honduras' World Cup dreams were over. Great news for the Salvadoran fans back home. Terrible news for the Salvadorans still living in Honduras. They became the target of revenge attacks. Farms were burned, homes were destroyed, and thousands fled back across the border. So now, El Salvador had a victory on the pitch, but a crisis at the border, which left its government with one sensible, mature, diplomatic option: invade Honduras. So on July 14th, 1969, El Salvador crossed the border, and the football war officially began. Salvadoran aircraft hit Honduran airfields first, hoping to keep the Honduran Air Force stuck on the ground, where planes are famously less useful. Then Salvadoran troops moved in, pushing across the border and advancing fast. For a moment, it looked like the operation would be a huge success. Soon, they reached the part of the war that ruins all the fun for the people who planned it. Supply chain. Excellent! Our invasion is going perfectly. Mostly perfectly, sir. Mostly? Well, fuel is becoming a problem. Fine! Our boys will stay put and shoot the place down. About that, ammo's pretty short. Do you have anything useful to say? Honduras has got their Air Force running and they're crippling our supply chain, sir. We didn't really plan for this one. No, sir. So, the Salvadoran war effort started to stall. Honduran planes took off, supply lines got hit, and suddenly, El Salvador had lost the upper hand. The invasion slowed into a stalemate, and just days after the war began, the Organization of American States stepped in and called for a ceasefire. El Salvador resisted at first, demanding protections for Salvadorans in Honduras. You gotta sign this, and if we don't, sanctions. Oh my, sanctions? Bit dramatic, no? Where do we sign? By July 18th, both sides accepted a ceasefire. The whole war had lasted about 100 hours, which was just enough time to cause some serious damage and long-term instability. El Salvador had achieved the impossible, invading another country, gaining no land, wrecking the economy, worsening the refugee crisis, and somehow making everyone even angrier. Several thousand people were dead or wounded. Hundreds of thousands of Salvadorans were pushed out of Honduras, which meant El Salvador now had the exact same land problem as before, but with extra people and significantly worse vibes. Relations with Honduras remained frozen for years. The Central American Common Market also took a beating, because trade agreements are notoriously fragile when its members start bombing each other. And all of this instability helped push El Salvador closer to the civil war that would tear the country apart a decade later. But hey, at least they made the World Cup, where they lost every game, scored 0 goals, conceded 9, and went home immediately. So, you know, silver linings. No. It was just a terrible situation. Moving on. What makes this war an outlier isn't that football magically caused a war. It's that a World Cup qualifier became the moment everything finally snapped. Years of land disputes, migration tensions, inequality, and government scapegoating all came crashing together. And then the actual fighting was over in just about 100 hours. That's what makes it so strange. A war remembered for football, fought in 4 days, but caused by problems that had been building for decades. And that is why the football war is one of history's strangest outliers. Oh, and remember, stay curious.